Entrepreneur, and welcome to Kingdom Builders. This is a Bible study for faith-based entrepreneurs that want to learn how to expand your influence and ultimately elevate his kingdom. And today we're going to be opening up a topic that I'm really excited to dive into. And I wonder, have you ever heard of a book called Think and Grow Rich? Think and Grow Rich. And if you have, put a 1 in the chat, whether you're live or on replay. And it's a powerful, powerful book for any entrepreneur, for anyone interested in success and making money and all these things, right? With a name like Think and Grow Rich, I mean, why wouldn't you be interested in something like that? Right. But it's also one of those books that, especially if you're a person of faith, it's one of those that kind of it challenges you, because you look at that and then you think about what you might have heard in your faith circle, you might have heard in church, and especially in an environment, depending on the type of teaching that you've been given, there is an overarching understanding or feeling that wealth equals wickedness and poverty equals piety. Like, it's like the more poor you are, the better that you are, right? Like, it's like this notion of there's nothing, I don't want to do anything with money. If I have money, that means I'm doing it in an evil way. That's populated by either some churches, that's populated by especially movies and pop culture, right? And just kind of like there's something about this money thing. And when it deals with the topic of rich, that word itself, it's only a four-letter word, but it's like it's so triggering for many people. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, one of your goals is to be able to build something of success, of value, and generate a good profit, and hopefully acquire some wealth and riches, right? Like, I think that's what we want. But when we look into this topic biblically, it's a fascinating one. So I want to start up a series in this Bible study. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I want to unpack these certain things. And here's the question: can you think and grow rich biblically? Right? That's the question. And I'd love to see your interaction on this, your comments on this, what you think about this. And my goal is to go through the Bible, which I view as my truth, my grounding. And I want to go through what it says about these topics that Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich talks about. And I'll say it like it's very evident. There's some principles out there, right? If you're not familiar with the topic, Think and Grow Rich is a book by Napoleon Hill. He was commissioned by a guy named Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie was one of the wealthiest people in the world. He was the steel industrial boss of his day during the Industrial Revolution. And he commissioned this guy named Napoleon Hill to go interview the most successful people of its time. Imagine you interviewed Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and these types of people. And Napoleon Hill, after 25 years of research, condensed these principles into 13 principles of success. And that book, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're interested in success, like most people go to that book as the Bible of success. And it's a great book. It talks a lot about the mind. It talks a lot about how to create. It talks about wealth and all these different principles, right? And it's very evident that there is something working there. Okay. But what does the Bible have to say about this? And if you've ever wondered that, then I invite you along in this journey as we dive through some of these principles. And I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to let the Bible be right on these different things. But the question that I want to answer is, can you think and grow rich biblically? And as I go through this, if anything comes to mind, comment. Also join. We have a free Telegram group called Kingdom Builders. If you're interested in being a part of that, I'd love to hear your thoughts in there as well, too. You can check out the link tree in the bio, but also the caption as well. But let me start it off with this, okay? Think and grow rich. The topic of growing rich. I'm sure all of us, regardless of the program that we were brought up with, the topic of being rich, whether you outrightly say that you want it or not, is a shared want by, I think, all of us. Right? Like, honestly, put it to you in the chat. If you could be rich, whatever you describe as that, would you want that? Like, that just sounds nice, right? Like, why not? Now, obviously, rich, it can deal with money, it can deal with resources, it can deal with time and relationships and health. And like, riches deal with many different things. But on the topic of money itself, rich is something that I think most of us strive for. Okay. So let's go through this. Yeah, and I appreciate the honesty. And there's nothing wrong about that. It's just money's just a piece of paper, or a digital currency, whatever that it is. So let me go through a couple things that the Bible says about this, and I wonder what you think. And we're going to unpack this together, right? So I'm reading through Think and Grow Rich, and it's interesting because one of the stories in Think and Grow Rich is a guy named Charles Schwab. Now, Charles Schwab, if you don't, you probably know the name. Like, there's a bank, or was a bank, that was named after Charles Schwab. But Charles Schwab is noted in this book, Think and Grow Rich, as generating over $600 million during that time, which is a lot of money, right? And that seemed like a success. However, if you actually look at Charles Schwab's story, at the end of his life, did you know that he generated a lot of money, but at the end of his life, he died miserable. He actually, for the last 5 years of his life, was living off of borrowed money, and he died bankrupt. I mean, that sounds really, really sad. We look at the Bible itself as well too, though. And we look at the most baller person, the most wealthy person in the entire Bible, the most rich person in the Bible is a guy named Solomon. He became king. If you know Solomon, I've been reading different articles on him. Some say that Solomon made at least every year, according to today's standards, $1.1 billion with a B. Like, every year, at least, he earned $1.1 billion. This guy was super successful. I read another article that if you actually took his net worth for today, the most successful, wealthy people in the world right now, I think, are under $1 trillion. I don't know if there's a trillionaire yet or not. A trillion is 1,000 billions, right? Solomon was said to be worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. Did you know that? Hundreds of, not just 1 trillion, which is 1,000 billions, hundreds of trillions. So this dude was wealthy. So it's interesting, like, if we want to think and grow rich, like, it's good if we kind of take a look at who Solomon was, because evidently he became very rich. But this is what's kind of trippy about it as well too, and I want to kind of unpack this. Well, do we want that? Right? So I'm going to go through a couple of scriptures here that are interesting to kind of open up this topic together. So I'm going to go to Ecclesiastes 5:10 through 17. Let me kind of go through this. And Ecclesiastes is written by Solomon. He wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. And if you know what happened, he made a lot of money. And then throughout his life, this is towards the end of his life, and this is what he says about money. Interesting. And this is what kind of permeates the faith circles, and that's why it kind of gets us tripped up. It's like, do we want money? Do we not want money? But hear what Solomon says. So he made tons of money. And let me just read through it. One who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor one who loves abundance with its income. This too is futility. When good things increase, those who consume then increase. What's their advantage to their owners except just to look at them? The sleep of the laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich does not allow him to sleep. And you just take a look at this. Like, it sounds like Solomon is saying, after making all this money, hundreds of trillions, he's like, what's the point? Like, there's no joy when it comes to money. So, like, should we think and grow rich? Is there such a thing as that? Like, do we want to make money? And I think there's some really, really key things to say, because we don't want to end up like a Charles Schwab. And we don't want to end up what Solomon says there as well too, which is making a lot of money and not having any joy with it as well too. So there's one extreme, right? Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard of that type of extreme before. Basically, especially in church, the notion of wealth is horrible. Love of money is horrible. Like, these types of things, right? Which is true. in Second Timothy, it says that the love of money is a root of all evil. So I want to make it clear that when we approach this topic, the goal is not to love money, right? Because if we do, then it's leading us into the wrong direction. However, I also want to make sure that we're clear as well too, is that when it deals with riches, which is what we're talking about today, is there a way to do it in a way where it can actually be a good thing, right? A good thing. Well, how do we do that? Well, if you take a look, here is a verse on the flip side of things. Okay. It says, and this is the same dude, Solomon, right? The one that just wrote about riches leading to nothing, basically. He also says in Proverbs 10:22, it says here, it is the blessing of the Lord that makes rich, rich, that actual word. And I looked up the Hebrew. Guess what the Hebrew word for rich means? It's the word ashar, Ashar. And guess what it means? It literally just means rich, money. Like, yes, the Bible actually talks about money. It literally says it is the blessing of the Lord that makes rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. So it seems evidently that there is a way to become rich in money and resources and all the above as well too, and have no sorrow to it. So now we look at this and you're like, wait. I'm confused. So you got Solomon, who is the modern day Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk and way more wealthier than all of them, that became super, super rich, very wealthy. And here in one area, he's saying that riches lead to sorrow, basically. And here in another area, he's saying that no, the blessing of the Lord makes rich and he adds no sorrow to it. What is right? How do we do this? Like, huh? And I think the very big key is this, as we even talk about thinking and growing rich, is that if you want to think and grow rich, but you want to have no sorrow with it, then there's a right way to approach things. There's a right way to approach things. And what is this right way to approach things? Well, I'm going to pull up what Solomon at the end of his life realized. Remember, this is the wealthiest dude in the world, like literally, right? He was a real dude. So, been documented history and everything. So, take a look at this. I'm going to go through Ecclesiastes 12, 13 to 14. Okay. This is the end. So Solomon, just to give you a little bit of a history lesson, right? So he came into kingship, and then if you know the story, he prayed for wisdom, and then he got wisdom, and God's like, hey, glad that you prayed for wisdom. I'm going to add on everything else, wealth and riches and all these things. He acquires a lot of wealth. He's great. But Solomon, during the midst of his life, he actually gets sidetracked. If you know, he had 1,000 wives and concubines. He started marrying people that were not of faith. He started getting really confused, and basically he fell away from his walk with God. So remember what he said in Proverbs 10:22. It said that the blessing of the Lord is a big thing. It adds no sorrow to it. The blessing of the Lord makes rich. He adds no sorrow to it. Then he gets sidetracked and he starts pursuing what the world wants. And what the world wants is this, not blessing from the Lord. They don't want the walk with the Lord. They want just the fruit of the Lord, right? They want wealth and money and power and prestige and sex and status and all these different things. And whenever we put anything above the love of God and make that an idol, that's why it says in 2 Timothy, the love of money is a root of all evil. Anything above God, it leads into sorrow. But if we put God first, it says in Matthew 6:33, if we put him first and his righteousness first, then all of these other things will be added to us. Okay, so there's this balance that we have to take a look at this. Okay, we're talking about, can you think and grow rich biblically? So I'm just kind of going through these topics right here. All right, so what happened is Solomon lost his way. And then that's when he wrote Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is basically a really sad book. He's just like, what's the purpose of life? It's kind of like, imagine if you can think about an old man that's just disgruntled about life. That's kind of like what Solomon was in Ecclesiastes. However, here it is. This is his conclusion of Ecclesiastes. And this is the conclusion that I want us to rest on as we tackle this topic, is this. Ecclesiastes 12:13. The conclusion, when everything has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. So this is what he realized. If you follow God, if you fear him, meaning that you honor him, you pursue him, you follow what he says, then that is the purpose of life. And if God wills it, and there are principles that you put into place, then the Proverbs 10:22 makes sense, which is the blessing from the Lord makes you rich, and it adds no sorrow to it. But if you purely seek to get rich without God, you are living a life that is purposeless, living a life that is meaningless, living a life that will lead you to sorrow. So I want to preface this conversation as we start diving into these daily studies, is that it's okay to be rich if God is first. I want to have success with fulfillment, success with enjoyment, success with all of the above. But if we put success over God or anything over him, then that's when things go off. And take notes from Solomon, the most successful person that ever lived, that was worth hundreds of trillions of dollars, apparently. That this guy tried to achieve all the things that the world says that we should. And he realized there was no purpose. He was really sad. But then he came back to his true love and the truth, which is fear God and follow his commandments. And then if there is blessing, then things will happen. So I wonder if this resonates with you, right? I wonder if it does. What do you think about this? Let me end now with then one verse that we're going to unpack as we go through Think and Grow Rich biblically. Okay, so I want to make sure there's that introduction to things. And here's one verse that we're going to be going through next. I won't talk about it today much, but I will at least highlight it. Can you think and grow rich biblically? Well, in Joshua 1:8, it seems like it does. Here's what it says. This is a quote. This is God speaking to this dude named Joshua. Joshua is, Moses, the guy that split the Red Sea, right? Joshua is the person that takes command after Moses passes away. And Joshua gets this success tip from the Lord. And this is what God says. This book of the law, the Bible, shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. So meditate meaning to think. To think. Okay, so can you think and grow rich biblically? Well, according to Joshua 1:8, all right, here's a principle. Think. So that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it, for then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will achieve success. So is this saying that if you think correctly, that then you can actually achieve prosperity and success? Yes. But thinking properly, though. What are you thinking about? Here's the premise to this. This book of the law, the Bible, the truth. If you think about the truth and then you do it, then you can be prosperous and then you can achieve success. Here's the baseline premise to this entire thing as we think about, can you think and grow rich biblically? Number one, make sure that the priority is right, which is we're not seeking riches for riches' sake. We're seeking God for God's sake and following his principles so that he will add no sorrow to riches, if that is the will in your life. Some people are will not to have riches here, which is right. So there is poverty, right? There are some people that are just poor. Paul was poor in the Bible, right? He wasn't tons of riches, but it's okay. But Solomon was very rich. So to say that riches are bad is wrong, because Solomon had hundreds of trillions of dollars, right? So as long as God is priority. However, if we think on the Bible, we meditate on it, we do it, then it can yield prosperity and success. It can Think and Grow Rich. And what I want to unpack as we go through this study is I'm going to parallel the chapters in Think and Grow Rich. There's 13 principles that Napoleon Hill talks about. And I want to unpack chapter by chapter, principle by principle. What does the Bible have to say about this? And I'm excited for this journey together. So if this sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to follow, be sure to share this. Be sure you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put all of our replays of these studies there as well too. And also join us in our Telegram channel, our Kingdom Builders Telegram channel. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on these things. Take a look at the link in the bio or the link in the caption as well. And also shout out, we have a Kickstarter going on. I did just write a book. We finished a whole campaign on fasting, prayer, and study for breakthrough, which then led me to start to want to do this campaign as well. And it's going to be super interesting. You're welcome, Lily. So if you're interested in that, we still have a Kickstarter going on. It's moving, it's grooving. We are praying for a Christmas miracle on that, actually. If you want an early copy of the book, Lily, I know, just got the book, so I'm excited. And also you can choose to partner and contribute to that campaign. It's going to be cool. Take a look at the link to the bio and also the links as well. But I'm excited. Join us for this. I'm going to do this every Monday through Friday. And I can't wait for this journey together. All right, everyone. On that, share this with somebody who felt it was helpful. On that, have a blessed day, and excited to unpack this Think and Grow Rich in a biblical way. All right, guys.